is truth, said Pilate, and he was too impatient to wait for an answer. Truth in St. John is a fundamental theme. The soul is in its truth or in a lie, and the demon is the father of the lie. In St. John, we have right through the Gospel this cosmic battle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood. And in this Gospel, we have the outworking of that. It is as though Pilate, in this private conversation, were himself the prisoner and being judged. He is a little alarmed. Indeed, when eventually he is told about this blasphemy, that he is making himself to be a son of God, he becomes somewhat afraid. There might be some superstition in his soul. Indeed, we know that his wife had had this strange dream the previous night and had come or sent a message to him, have nothing to do with this just man. Truth. The kingdom of Christ is true. The culture that comes from his reign is based on truth and light. We compare the outworking of that truth and light, I mean on even the social level in a Christian land, with that untruth and semi-darkness coming from some religion which cannot be also true, for truth is not divided. The Logos is one, and all participation in truth is participation in the knowledge and wisdom of the second person of the Blessed Trinity. We have in common with our Jewish brethren and our Muslim brethren a certain monotheism, although there was some oscillation in the early stages of Islam when Muhammad did actually back down at one point, it seems, with regard to permitting the worship of the three goddesses at Mecca, so as to placate people for a while there in that centre of neuralgic pain. However, he came back then to his monotheism, but that monotheism is based on a denial of what already was in place in the world by the time he came. The bottom line of Islam is to refuse anything which suggests division within the Godhead to them, and therefore the repetition throughout the day of the oneness of Allah is against us. So what we're saying is that a large chunk of humanity is denying what is either true or false. Christ reigns or he doesn't reign, and to reign means also to teach. Christ, the Logos, the Son of God, is the one who is given unto humanity as the teacher. It is the self-revelation of the Father, and the Spirit that binds them together is a person, and that person also transfigures, transforms, heals, placates, and unifies humanity, that they may be one. Therefore, the Trinitarian vision that also changes society leads to communion, not to attack. there is a fundamental difference then between Christian culture and other cultures. People to this day pull out questions from ancient history, such as the Crusades, to attack that point, forgetting that such things as the Crusades were a last resort, lest Europe and the Holy Land, and indeed the eventual whole world, be overtaken by other forces hostile to the calm Trinitarian grace that wanted to conquer by the power of the truth. Had Lepanto not been victorious for the small number of Christians, but through the power of the Holy Rosary, we might now have Islamic culture in all of Europe. Force has power, violence has power, because of freedom being taken away, and therefore without liberty choices are made on the level of the choice of faith, which are not just based on listening to the truth. Here we have the supreme teacher before Pilate, a man, also one day to be judged, teaching humanity about the kingdom that he wishes to proclaim. He came to bear witness. And this word witness is taken up in the Apocalypse, in the reading that we have on this Sunday, the last of the year. The faithful witness. Indeed, many faithful witnesses have fallen to the sword, and worse. The word martyr means witness, martus. And we can be sure that those who die proclaiming on their lips the Lord Jesus Christ, as do our brethren in Islamic lands when they are martyred, have certainly a direct access to maximal glory and beatific vision because of their configuration to Christ on the cross. We cannot be at all sure that those who obey other forces will have the same recompense, even should they be, in order to do so well in their eyes, be sacrificing their own lives. It is not at all clear that a person who dies killing other people in the process will have access to the same glory. Christ alone can give us assurance of the things beyond the grave, for he has come from beyond and has returned there and will welcome us there as the Alpha and the Omega, the one who will have the last word. And no amount of noise of proclaiming other noises, even many times a day, can change one iota on the fundamental truth of creation, for creation is his. The first word was fiat, let there be. And what should there be? Light. Therefore light. The light seen on Tabor, the light seen at the victory on Easter morn, the light still seen in the Holy Sepulchre each Easter, is what we are going to through the true witness, who alone himself, as the second person of the Trinity, opened the door of the shut place of paradise, closed by our own ancestor. It was closed at original sin, and not even the just could get there. So when he said, "It is finished," at that point the kingdom was ours. He had conquered it for us. And for someone to come in his place in a subsequent generation and to diminish that work and that teacher is questionable. It is questionable indeed whether an angel or an archangel could speak to someone else and give another revelation. Truth is not divided, and neither must we be. If the Blessed Trinity is complete harmony and communion, the kingdom that the Lord wished to establish must be of the same order. And indeed, we have it in this same author, St. John the Evangelist, this insistence that the Lord's will and testimony before he went to the cross was that we should be one. He is a king who wishes his kingdom to be of the type that he has already in communion with the Father and the Spirit. He insisted in his high priestly prayer on the nature of the kingdom, this union, that we should be as united amongst ourselves as he is with the Father. And that is concrete. The Church must be one and holy, and in its universality it must be able to comprehend shades of thought, for they are but aspects of the truth, and we have no power over the truth. Our role as creatures is to listen, and the teaching authority has come through, for he found it not a club, but a church, his mystical body, and gave the power to teach unto that body, and therefore his kingdom is here on earth, still, and visible. Indeed, his promise is given to the apostles in union with Peter, and in that we have the guarantee that the Spirit, the third person of the Blessed Trinity, is at work inspiring, and we must listen as disciples, not as noisy commentators. The disciple listens. He is the one who receives, and we are not a democracy. There's a fundamental difference between the mystical body and a democratic union. We do not command the truth. It is of a different order. What we do is together we try to understand its implications. We study it. We do not change it. We discover it. We unpack it under the guidance of the Spirit. And in that way we are subservient to the Ancient of Days, of which the first reading speaks. The old expression, Ancient of Days, is very beautiful. Somebody who is there from way back. Christ knows all the laws of creation, for he planted them. He therefore knows how to make exceptions to them. We call it a miracle. It is not difficult for the Blessed Trinity to do that. What they do as a communion of love is to use power and wisdom to place an exceptional cause in the chain of causes and effects, and it appears unto us as a miracle. But in the mystical body we are always playing with those forces. Even on a daily basis we are handling not just human society, but the invasion of the divine. For the kingdom of the Lord was also a direct intervention in our time, on a daily basis, in the sacramental sphere. For the incarnation goes on, and the power of the redemption is there. The kingdom is in our midst, in the culture of our faith, on the altars, and therefore in the perception of those graces around us and in us, so that we too are participating in all the power of the incarnation. At Holy Communion we receive the same Lord of glory and the same Spirit, and therefore we are bound to be one. If at the altar and between our altars we are creating division, we are not proclaiming the kingdom, we are proclaiming ourselves. And to praise ourselves for creating factions is to limit the vision to a very human angle. Christ brings healing. Christ brings peace. And as we go through life, it is not our business to act to the favour of the demon by encouraging criticism, therefore pain and darkness, but in the midst of an already very dark world, calmly and lovingly to be a testimony to the truth. But knowing the best proclamation is that of a serene word without violence, for violence disrupts peace and therefore is an obstacle to communion. That communion which is the kingdom here on earth.